person was born to fulfill an assignment. Every human was created to solve a problem that God needed fixing. Welcome back to another episode of Intuition, everybody. Thank you, Intuition family, for tuning in for another one. Today's episode, we're talking about becoming a leader and the advantages of being alone. I'm gonna read that sentence again. Every person was born to fulfill an assignment. Every human was created to solve a problem that God needed to be fixed. When you think about it, God put us all on this earth to walk in our purpose and to do his will on earth and to draw people closer to him. But at the same time, too, you were born to fulfill an assignment, and you were born for something greater than you could far imagine in your little mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, God really has a purpose for everybody, in their life. He has a purpose for everybody. He has a purpose for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I want everybody to realize, too, that God didn't put you on this earth for no reason, that you're not a mistake, that you are meant to be here to do something that needs to be done, to solve a problem that needs to bring the world together, because the world truly does need healing. When I want to talk about the advantages of also being alone in this episode, one of the first points I want to make too is when you're alone, being alone causes you to hear God's voice clearly, but also to become your own individual and be single. And I think when a lot of people hear that, like, what do you mean be single? Like, not in a relationship or no, but being single really means to be your own personal individual and really find out, who you are and what you're meant to do on this earth. When you spend time alone and you're not always with the crowd and you're not always around 15 different people and everybody's trying to talk your ear off about everything, you really have a chance in life to really see, like, let me take a step back and really look at, who I am, what am I about, why am I on this earth, what is God's purpose for me, and also, too, who am I without anything materialistic of these worldly things that, that we want added to us, because at the same time, like I always say, when you get a chance to be alone, you get a chance to hear God's voice more clearly. And also, too, you get a chance to hear your voice. You get a chance to hear your voice more clearly, too. Because I don't think a lot of people understand. I know for some people that being alone, it feels like hell. But I think a lot of people have to understand, too, that it's also for your prosperity. And when you get the sense of feeling bored, do you know that being bored is a natural dopamine? Because when you have a chance to be bored, that creates things for creativity. You start to think like, what can I do besides scroll on TikTok and doom scroll and call 5 people and text, a person that I don't have no business texting, you know what I'm saying? You really get a chance to really understand, who you are, what you want to do in this life, and not what somebody else told you that you should do, but what you really could do that can get you up out of the bed every single day, and what you have a passion and a true drive for. Because I think that we all are, most of us are coming to the understanding that, we weren't put on this earth to work for, 30 plus years, have a retirement, and then let our bones rot for the rest of our lives and, be dead. You know what I'm saying? It's so much to life out here. God created this beautiful world in 6 days. He wants you to explore it, be a part of it, and not just exist, but live. You know what I'm saying? And so when you get a chance to be alone, you get a chance to become your own individual, because you're not always worried about other people's opinions, their validation, what they want from you. And, you get a chance to truly pour back into yourself and do something that is for your own benefit. Because like I always say, if you can't be good for you, you can't be good for anybody else. Another point that I also want to make too, we need human connection, but you need yourself more. And that's why I say it's an advantage of being alone and taking some time to yourself and being away from the crowd. Because, and even in the Bible, when Jesus told his disciples, go ahead, I'm going to come after you. And he went to the mountains to pray by himself and to get back in alignment with God. Jesus knew what he needed for himself. He knew that after all these miracles that he had bestowed upon these people, rising people from the dead, making prostitutes into teachers, and all these other things, man, he knew that he needed time for himself and also to reconnect with God again. But like I say, too, a lot of people have to realize, too, leaders find themselves when they're alone. Moses went to the wilderness and Jesus went to the desert. You know what I'm saying? When you're alone, you get a chance to really figure out, who you are and what you want out of life and what God wants you to do on your purpose and the path that he has planned for you. You know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot of people understand too, have to understand that in this life, you know what I'm saying, we need human connection, like I said, but you need yourself more. And you have to come to the realization of the fact that, you need the only 2 people that you really need in this life is God and yourself. Because if you have those 2 things alone, God and yourself, everything else is gonna naturally fall into place like you want it to. You're gonna have, friends and family that you already born into. You're gonna have love and relationships. But like I say, if you're not right with you and you're not right with God, none of that is not gonna be what you really want. Or you're gonna fall into relationships, friendships, and situations that you have no business being a part of, but also that that don't prosper you, but they harm you, and they really don't give you a future like the Lord wants to give you a future. You know what I'm saying? And also too, I want to say for my next point, when you're a leader and you're becoming a leader, when you're recognizing more about yourself, you're becoming in tune with yourself, you have to realize, leaders are always out in the front. So that's why, when you're alone and you're in a season of isolation, it seems lonely. But then you have to really tell yourself too, and you have to realize when you pursue something that's bigger than the crowd, you end up leading the crowd, because you said you were different. You said you were one of the ones. You said that you were going to be the first person in your family to break generational curses. But if you're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, and when you're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing in the crowd, you can't be who you say you want to be, because you have to make that sacrifice, because leaders see things before everybody else does. So in these next coming months, in these next couple of years in your life, really decide if if you really are who you say you are. If you say you're a leader, if you say you're someone that's going to change the world and make an impact and do better, like I say, when you pursue something that's bigger than the crowd, you're going to end up leading the crowd, because you're doing something that not everybody else is doing. But you have to make that sacrifice to know that I can't do or be around certain people that are no longer, that I'm not benefiting from, but that also are leeches on me. You're going to have to be, away from some people in your life, friends, close family members that are really dragging you down. And, you got to do you first. But then once you do you first and you get set up with you and you get set up right with God, all these things when you continue to pray for your family members and pray for your friendships, God is going to have their time with them. And sooner than later, they're going to be inspired by what you've been doing in your life. And that's going to make them want to do better too. Because one of my last points that I want to make too, you cannot lead everyone. You're failing if no one leaves. It is okay for people to go, because leadership does not make people happy all the time. Like I said, you can't lead everyone. You're failing if no one ever leaves. If that's in friendships, if that's in business, if you're a leader, if you're a boss, you know what I'm saying? Because you have to realize too, if I need you, I can't lead you. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to stand on certain morals and values and principles that are so construct and that is such a principle to you that you can't move off of that for anybody. You know what I'm saying? When you're a leader, people are going to fall off. Those leaves are going to fall off your tree, because they no longer can grow with you in the new season that God has you ready to walk in. When it's your time and God turns that light green, he tells you to hit the gas, you're going to leave a couple people behind. But that doesn't mean they'll be behind forever. Some will, but some that are really meant to be with you, they might just come a little bit after you, because you're in a different season right now. You're in a new horizon. You're in something better that God has stowed upon you. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to be able to take everybody with you at all, or even at once. You know what I'm saying? You have to put the focus on you. And like I always say, if you're going to be a people pleaser, let the first person in line that you please is yourself. Seriously. And know that too. And the last thing I want to say that, maybe somebody needs to hear right now, some relationships end in your life so self-respect can begin. I'm going to say that again. Some relationships in your life have to end so self-respect can begin. It is time for you to let go of the negative people, the naysayers, the people that never believe in you. They're not excited for your wins. They always have something bad to say. It's just never anything good with them. And also, too, situations that you've been tolerating for way too long, but you say you respect yourself, but if you look at the action and somebody outside looking in looks at it, it doesn't look like that. So remember, some relationships have to end so self-respect can begin. And holla at your boy too. I see you real soon.